Welcome to Operations in Motion, a podcast where we connect current events to what we're learning in Butler University's MBA 540 course, Introduction to Operations and Supply Chain. I'm your host, Erin, and today we're discussing a national issue that hits right at the heart of operations and supply chain management, cargo theft. I'm joined by my classmates Doug, a railroad superintendent with firsthand experience in logistics operations, Noah, who focuses on supply chain technology, and Hayden, who works in physical security and risk management. Thank you to all of you for joining. Our conversation draws from recent stories, the Hill's article, Cargo Theft, an Emerging National and Economic Security Crisis, an Associated Press report on freight train thefts across Arizona and California, and a 60 Minutes feature on how thieves stole 24,000 bottles of Guy Fieri's Santo Tequila in an elaborate high-tech heist. So let's jump right in. Doug, you live in this world every day in rail operations. How serious is cargo theft from your perspective?
Well, good afternoon, Aaron. And from an overall supply chain standpoint, cargo theft it's become one of the more serious issues that we face. Operational risk we're facing now, I don't know if you can get any larger. It's not just something that's happening at random truck stops anymore. Uh, Across every mode of transportation, trucking, rail, intermodal yards, cross-border shipments, even the ocean carriers are facing new threats, and it's getting more organized and it's getting more expensive to fight this threat. From an operational perspective, it's not just a transportation problem. It's a total supply chain integrity problem. From every handoff, every broker, every yard terminal becomes a potential vulnerability. And because reporting is still so fragmented and delayed, we probably only see part of what's really happening. So from where I sit, cargo theft is absolutely a top tier threat right now. It's evolved from petty crime into a very organized supply chain wide risk. The challenge and opportunity is to treat it like all other major resilience issues with data collaboration and a system-wide response.
Exactly. The Hill reports that cargo crimes rose 27% in 2024, causing over $1 billion in losses. So, what used to just be the small scale crime has now elevated to a sophisticated, coordinated industry that threatens the entire supply chain. So, now let's talk about a real world heist. So, Doug, the AP story details thieves cutting brake lines on freight trains in Arizona to steal hundreds of thousands of dollars in Nike shoes. What's happening out there? And have you seen similar instances in your work?
Yeah, Aaron, unfortunately, the AP article hit the nail right on the head. And what's really changed, what you just mentioned, is the tactics. Tactics is not hitting a box that's just sitting there. It's actually hitting moving trains or uh, actually very organized, cutting the actual lights that run the trains or signal mast. So we're seeing sophisticated crime rings using fake carriers, identity spoofing, and even GPS jamming to hijack shipments before anyone knows that they're even missing. It's not just trucks and facilities, it's rail. As you mentioned, thefts are up, especially around the big logistics hubs like Chicago, Memphis, and Los Angeles. If you look at the U.S. and Mexico operations, theft has exploded in states like Pueblo, Guadalajara. It's driver shortages and weak corridor security are really driving a lot of that. And every day, if you ask if I'm seeing it, every day we see trains get hit across the country. An incident recently that shows how sophisticated criminals have become really comes to mind is in California, just outside of LA. We had a train depart. They targeted a signal mast, which directs the train movements. The thieves actually cut the power to causing all the trains to stop. And the sophistication comes in as they didn't hit the train next to the signal mast. They hit the train three trains back, right? So they know where the freight's at. They know what train it's running on. They have a very organized network. So after all the trains stopped, and after an investigation, more than 30 containers on that train were hit, losses upwards of $2 million just from that one train. And it's not about the amount of product either, right? It also slows operations, causing backups on main lines that ripple through the entire network, creating delays through the entire supply chain. Causes major disruptions, resulting in delivery delays, insurance hike, reputation hits to companies. And in the end, it really ends up costing the consumer.
Thank you. That's just a perfect example of how one event can cascade into system-wide inefficiencies. So now we're going to move on to talk to Noah a little bit about technology. So, Noah, from a technological perspective, what tools or systems are companies using to combat theft?
It's a really good question. So, from a technology standpoint, I believe companies are really stepping up their game to fight cargo theft. The biggest tool right now is real-time GPS tracking. Trucks, trailers, and even individual pallets can be tracked, so dispatchers know instantly if something goes off route. That often pairs with IoT sensors that monitor things like door openings or tampering and send alerts if cargo is accessed in the wrong place. Another big one is AI and predictive analytics. Logistics companies use it to spot suspicious behavior like fake carriers or unusual pickup requests before theft even happens. There's also a push for smart locks and electronic seals that send data when open, and geofencing, which creates virtual boundaries so alerts trigger if cargo leaves a safe zone. Finally, AI-powered video surveillance at warehouses and yards helps detect suspicious activity earlier. Together, these tools are turning supply chain into smart, data-driven networks that make it much harder for thieves to hide.
Thank you, Noah, for sharing this perspective. In our class, we learned about the SCORE model, especially the concepts of visibility and coordination as enablers of resilience in a supply chain. So now we're going to talk a little bit about a high-tech theft, the Guy Fieri case. So in 60 Minutes, they recently did a story on Guy Fieri's Santo Tequila. And this shows that theft isn't always about cutting locks or stopping trains. It can happen entirely online. In that case, thieves created fake trucking companies, used forged documents, and spoofed GPS signals to make it look like trucks carrying more than $1 million worth of tequila were still on their way to a Pennsylvania warehouse. The GPS was falsified, the emails were faked, and by the time anyone realized what was happening, the tequila had been redirected and ultimately disappeared. So, Hayden, talk about that for us, will you?
Yeah, for sure. No, that story is incredible because it shows how criminal groups have evolved. This wasn't just a group of people breaking into trailers. It was an international operation using digital tools and fake credentials to hijack freight remotely. Noah, any other additional points on that?
Yeah, it also shows how vulnerable our reliance on online logistic platforms can be. Companies outsource shipping through digital marketplaces, often with minimal verification carriers. This double brokering creates openings for fake carriers who intercept high-value loads. Doug, anything you want to add?
Yeah, from the operations side, I mean, it's the impact is immediate. You think about that the tequila theft. It drives businesses to overorder products, creating the bullwhip effect, which we talked about in class, to make up for losses and increase delivery times, putting additional pressure on the supply chain, resulting in a more congestion and more cost. It's just a reminder that, one theft can undermine months of production and planning, having a lasting impact on our customers.
Exactly. So that really brings us to the economic side of the issue. The Hill article, excuse me, argued that cargo theft is not just a logistics problem, it's a national and economic security risk. So now we'll talk a little bit about policy and coordination. So the author of that Hill article, Michael Houston, proposed that agencies like Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, and the FBI need to coordinate more directly with the private sector. Why is that kind of collaboration so important?
Aaron, the kind of collaboration Michael Houston is calling for isn't nice to have in today's environment. Cargo theft is becoming more organized and tech-driven. It means it's absolutely necessary. Without the help of the federal government, we're never going to be able to make a dent in this type of crime. Local law enforcement can't pursue theft rings to operate across multiple states or even internationally. So the federal coordination allows information sharing, prosecution at the right levels. That's why deeper coordination between agencies like Homeland Security, Customs Border Protection, FBI, and the private sector is also critical. I mean, each side brings something the other doesn't.
Yeah, I agree with Doug there. I think collaboration is crucial because cargo theft isn't just a business issue, it's a national security threat. Hudson explains that federal agencies have the intelligence and the investigative power, while the private sector has real-time supply chain data. Working together helps them share information, spot patterns faster, and close the gaps criminals exploit across borders and industries.
And also, consistent national penalties are essential. Right now, the legal response to cargo theft varies from state to state, which creates loopholes for organized crime groups to exploit. Without uniform enforcement, these crimes remain low risk, high reward. In addition to stricter and standardized penalties, there needs to be a centralized reporting system that allows incidents to be tracked and analyzed nationally. That kind of data help both federal agencies and private companies identify patterns, hotspots, and methods used by theft rings. Consistency in law enforcement is a data sharing would send a strong message while also improving prevention efforts across the entire supply chain network.
So effective risk management depends on both operational strategy and government partnership. This kind of integration mirrors what we've studied in supply chain design and governance. So now we'll talk a little bit about the broader impact. Let's zoom out. What does this all say about the overall health of America's supply chain?
Yeah, Erin, that's something that we definitely need to continue to focus on. It doesn't just affect those in the supply chain, it affects everyone. The supply chain continues to optimize capacity, speed, and cost, but it's still lagging in the security, even with all the efforts being made in the theft reduction. It's a daunting task when you think about it. The scale, 140,000 miles of freight rail in the U.S. and trying to protect all of that at 24/7 is virtually impossible. So just like during the pandemic, we're learning that, lean systems are fragile. Due to the complexity of the supply chain, we continue to introduce redundancy and crisis planning into our operations to help address the issue, but we still have a long way to go.
For sure. And it also highlights the human side of logistics. Workers are on the front line of these events, and their safety must remain a priority. Training, communication, and clear reporting procedures are just as critical as physical locks or digital tracking.
Yeah, and for me, I think it just goes straight to transparency. I think transparency builds trust. When partners share data in real time, it strengthens the entire ecosystem. Manufacturers, carriers, and consumers all benefit from visibility and accountability.
Well, thank you, everyone. So as Guy Fieri said in his interview, if it can happen to us, then everybody's vulnerable. Cargo theft isn't just a niche problem anymore. It's a national operations challenge that affects everything from pricing to employment to consumer trust. So thanks to Doug and Noah and Hayden for this discussion. And thank you for listening to Operations in Motion. Until next time, keep your supply chains strong, smart, and secure.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.